Well, we're going to get moving. Of course, as we said, we have a very packed show for today. And before we get into our first segment, of course, we want to do an update as to the weekend and the different crimes that took place. Isani, I know we had quite a bit of shootings, and it really started off on Friday evening with the horrible incident on Daly Street.
Well, just a forecast of stories that will be covered in today's newscast and going into the week ahead. On Friday evening, there was a tragedy that I'm certain the families involved are still coming to grips with, and that involved what is now double murder. The 7-year-old's name is Tyler Savory. I know going into the newscast on Friday evening, we didn't really have much details on hand, but we have since confirmed that indeed the 7-year-old is Tyler Savory, and the 21-year-old with whom he was riding a bicycle with on Daly Street also passed on Saturday, and he is 21-year-old Portian Pipersburg. There was also another murder on Friday at midnight. This would have been on Mahogany Street. The name of the individual is Andrew Williams, and he was listed as a cab driver. And there seemed to have been an altercation where he came under gunfire, and unfortunately he lost his life. No. Over the weekend as well, there was also preliminary reports of a murder in the Stann Creek Valley, which involved a female. We don't have much details on that as yet, insofar as a name, motive, etc. We'd have to follow that up later in the day. And before I forget, I'm sorry, there's also an encounter between the Satim Rangers and members of the Guatemalan Armed Forces in the south. This would have been in the Sarstoon area. So that is also something that we certainly got to look forward to in terms of coverage in the newscast, because it has implications that are far-reaching with regards to the Belize Guatemala situation.
Interestingly, we were just discussing with the foreign minister the Sarstoon protocol and the update there. And the release sent out by Satim, I think, is definitely a reminder to us that this is an urgent matter that needs to be addressed. And we can only hope that those who are ensuring that the protocol comes on board quickly will be able to understand that in seeing the video and the information that has been released by Satim.
Now, I think one of the most important piece of news item coming out of the weekend is the Prime Minister's return from New York, where he was on a working visit to renegotiate the terms of the super bond. It's been dubbed informally as Super Bond 3.0. So we have an interview with the Prime Minister on that. We also have an interview with him on his reactions to the Trump president, the President-elect Donald Trump, and all the controversies following last week's election, since PM Barrow was indeed in the United States. So let's go to the interview on the restructuring of the Super Bond.
As you've already found out, I went together with Ambassador Espat and the Financial Secretary. We went to finalize matters with our legal and financial advisors prior to officially notifying bondholders and the public that we are going to be seeking to restructure. We have agreed our strategy, and now it is a matter of actually engaging the bondholders in the face-to-face negotiations, which Ambassador Espat will lead together with the City Group, which is the sort of financial intermediary that's advising us.
Explain to us what has necessitated this from the perspective of the government in terms of our financial picture.
Well, it is what the press release said. Clearly, we are going through some difficult times. The bottom line is, though, that a number of the assumptions that were made in common between ourselves and the bondholders when we last restructured have not proven to be valid or have not proven to be durable. And so going forward, we are convinced that we need a redo, and this time the level of relief that we are looking for must be such that it will be absolutely sustainable, even in the face of the vicissitudes that can overtake any economy. So we're looking for a degree of relief that will mean that we do not have to worry in the short term, in the medium term, even in the long term, no matter what circumstances might overtake the country.
Sir, can you give us your perspective on what would be a successful restructuring effort should the bondholders be receptive?
As I said, we're looking for an outcome that will absolutely guarantee sustainability. But let me ask Ambassador Mark to talk a little bit more.
I think there are only three possibilities in that regard. There is the coupon rate, the interest rate being paid. There is the time when the principal repayment is supposed to start, which at this present time is August of 2019. And there is the ultimate maturity, which is scheduled at this time for 2035. So those are the three elements that will be in play.
What are those numbers, can you say, that you intend to look at and propose to those bondholders?
No, I think that would be premature at this point. The government of Belize, in the terms and conditions of the bonds, have an obligation to consult with bondholders and to confer with a creditor committee when such a committee is formed. We fully expect that that committee will be formed in the coming days, and Belize will engage in those discussions in good faith, with the ultimate objective, as Prime Minister Barrow enunciated, to ensure long-term sustainability.
Sir, are we moving towards a trajectory to a place of increased taxes next fiscal year, given all the financial pressures, additionally with the hurricane?
Well, we've made no secret of the fact that there will have to be a degree of fiscal consolidation. So there's going to have to be a tax restructuring as well as a bond restructuring exercise that we will need to undertake, that we have already started on. The key, though, and this is why Dr. Barnett was brought into the cabinet, the key is that the government will not get ahead of the people, will not get ahead of the commercial sector, will not get ahead of the business sector, so that whatever we do, and we won't do anything before the next budget, which is not that far away, whatever we do for March will be as a consequence of the most intense consultations you can imagine. Doesn't mean that after we've engaged everyone, that what the government does will have the support of everyone, but nobody will be able to say we've been blindsided. And nobody will be able to say I didn't have an input insofar as the process is concerned. I think given the times, that's about the best we can do, that's about the best we can hope for.
All right, that was the first of a two-part interview conducted with Prime Minister Dean Barrow on Saturday, November 12th, upon his return from New York. The second part of the interview that we're going to go to now is one he did on his initial reaction to President-elect Donald Trump and the situation as it's unfolding in the United States in the wake of last Tuesday's election. That's what we have coming up. Share with us Reaction to the United States presidential election, seeing as though you were in New York at the time that Americans went to the polls?
Well, clearly their democracy worked. The elections obviously were not rigged. And the fact that Mr. Trump was able to confound all the pundits and pollsters is something of which he's no doubt extraordinarily and justifiably proud. We, as a fellow democracy, certainly congratulate the people of the United States on what was a peaceful election, and we congratulate Mr. Trump as the president-elect.
What are your impressions of the man? He is currently in his country facing a show of no confidence from thousands of Americans.
Well, I don't know the man, so I can't really comment. The fact that there are these protests being mounted, that too is a function of democracy. But the man won, and he may not have won the popular vote, but in terms of the electoral college, he won handsomely. So them's the breaks. That's a democratic process.
All right, so that was the second part of the interview that was done with Ian Barrow over the weekend.
That's right.
And of course, as I mentioned earlier, there are quite a number of stories to be covered today based on events that took place over the weekend. Some tragic, a majority, I have to admit, it was seemingly a violent weekend.
It was, yeah.
Right? So there are a number of shootings, there are a number of other stuff happening in the news, and we look forward to bringing those stories to you this evening at 6:30.
All right, and we'll tell you a bit about what you can expect in our show for today. We do have a conversation lined up with representatives of different NGOs to talk about the process of selecting the 13th senator. This is a long-awaited process. They have formalized themselves to be able to ensure that they have the best representative that will be able to carry out their mandate. So we'll have 3 representatives of the committee that's working on that to be able to talk to us more about the process they're undergoing at this time. Right? And then we're moving into a conversation. Today actually is World Diabetes Day. Every November 14th, it's commemorated worldwide. So today we have a very interesting conversation lined up with 3 persons who are living with diabetes in Belize. They're different ages and they have different experiences. We've heard from the Diabetes Association that there are some issues of stigma, there are some issues of people being able to keep up with diet and maintenance. So we're going to get a first-hand recollection from the guests that we have lined up for that segment. And then
the third part of the show, which is the final segment, has to do with our friends over at Smart. And of course, they're having a promotions on services that they offer to the consumers. All right, so that's what we have lined up for this morning's show.
we're going to go ahead and take a break, and we'll be right back in a few, so stay tuned.